Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
2.1 Constitutionalism Principles Practices in the case of Nepal. A constitution is a written or unwritten fundamental law that establishes the framework of government, defines powers and duties of government institutions, and guarantees rights to the people. Purpose of the Constitution: to provide the legal foundation for governance and protect citizens' rights. For example, the US Constitution, Indian Constitution, Nepal Constitution 2015. What is constitutionalism? Constitutionalism is the principle or practice of limiting government power by a constitution and ensuring that government authority is exercised according to established laws and principles. Its purpose is to ensure rule of law, accountability, and protection of fundamental rights, preventing arbitrary or absolute power. Key difference: Constitution is the document or law, while constitutionalism is the idea or practice of respecting and upholding that constitution is in governing. Constitutionalism is a political philosophy and legal principle that emphasizes the limitation of government power through a constitution, ensuring that rulers adhere to the rule of law and respect fundamental rights. It is based on the idea that government authority should be defined and restrained by a set of fundamental laws rather than being arbitrary or absolute. Here are the key features of constitutionalism. 1. Rule of law. The government and its officials must operate within the framework of the law. No one is above the law, including lawmakers and leaders. Number 2. Limited government. Powers of the government are restricted to prevent tyranny and abuse. Separation of powers, legislative, executive, judiciary, ensures checks and balances. Number 3. Protection of fundamental rights. The Constitution guarantees civil liberties and human rights. Example: freedom of speech, equality before law. Judicial review allows courts to strike down unconstitutional laws. Number 4. Written or unwritten constitution. Some countries, example the US, India, Nepal, have a written constitutions. Others, example UK, rely on conventions, statutes, and judicial precedents. Number 5. Popular sovereignty. The authority of the government derives from the consent of the people through elections and democratic processes. Number 6. Judicial independence. Courts must be free from political interference to uphold constitutional principles. Constitutionalism versus mere constitution. A country may have a constitution, a set of laws, but lack constitutionalism if the government ignores legal limits. Example: dictatorships with nominal constitutions. Constitutionalism ensures that the constitution is effectively enforced and respected. Examples: US Constitution 1787 establishes federalism, separation of powers, and Bill of Rights. Indian Constitution 1950 combines rigidity and flexibility with judicial review. British constitutionalism based on traditions, common law, and parliamentary sovereignty. Constitutionalism is essential for democracy, protecting citizens from arbitrary rule and ensuring accountable governance. It is not just about having a constitution, but about upholding its principles in practice. Aspects of constitutionalism. Legal aspects. Concerned with limiting power through law and constitution. Constitution as supreme law of the land. Any act contrary to the constitution is void. Provision of fundamental rights. Independent judiciary ensures impartial justice, judicial review to check constitutionality of laws and actions, limited government bound by legal and constitutional limits, extraordinary jurisdiction for protection of rights and constitutional order. Political aspects focuses on making the constitution democratic and people-oriented, ensures effective political representation, periodic elections for renewal of government mandate, adult franchise, all citizens above fixed age have right to vote, independent and competent constitutional bodies, democratic norms and values internalized in political process, political pluralism, existence of multiple political parties, majority rule with respect for minority rights, vibrant democratic institutions for accountability and transparency. Evolution of constitutionalism. Ancient roots or pre-modern era uh, Code of Hammurabi, 1754 BCE. It is one of the earliest written legal codes in human history. It is created by King Hammurabi of Babylon. It included 282 laws dealing with justice, trade, property, family, and punishment. Its significance is it established the idea that laws should be written and applied uniformly, which is a key concept in constitutionalism. Greek democracy, which was in Athens in 5th to 4th century BCE, it is a form of direct democracy where citizens voted on laws themselves. Only free land owning Athenian men could participate, not women, slaves, or foreigners. Its significance is it introduced the idea that the people could govern themselves, a foundation for popular sovereignty in constitutionalism. Roman Republic. It developed a mixed government with Senate, consuls, and assemblies. Senate is for aristocratic body, consuls is for executive authority, and assemblies for popular element. The 12 tables were the first public codification of Roman law around 450 BCE. Its significance is it promoted checks and balance and separation of powers. It emphasized the importance of written law accessible to citizens, essential to modern constitutionalism. These ancient systems laid the foundational principle of constitutionalism, rule of law, public participation, checks and balance, and written legal codes. Medieval developments. Magna Carta, 1215, which was in England, it was signed by King John of England after pressure from barons. The key provisions were it limited the absolute power of the king. It guaranteed certain rights to nobles, example, protection from illegal imprisonment and fair trials. It established the idea that the king was subject to the law, not above it. The significance of this document were it laid the foundation for the rule of law and due process. It influenced later constitutional documents like the English Bill of Rights 1689 and US Constitution. Next is Medina Charter 622 CE Arabia. It was drafted by Prophet Muhammad in Medina. It is considered one of the earliest constitutional models in Islamic history. The key provisions are it recognized different religious and tribal groups as part of one community. It emphasized justice, collective security, and mutual responsibilities. It introduced the concept of shura, which is known as consultation in decision making. Its significance are early model of pluralistic governance with shared rights and duties. It reflected principle of justice, equality, and community consensus important in constitutional development. These medieval developments reinforced two core constitutional principles. One is limiting arbitrary power of rulers, and another is ensuring justice and community participation in governance. Early modern constitutionalism, uh, Petition of Right, Bill of Rights, John Locke ideas, Mayflower Compact, American Declaration of Independence, US Constitution, French Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, and Napoleonic Code are some early modern constitutionalism practices. Petition of Right was held on 1628 in England. It is a constitutional document presented to King Charles I by Parliament. It opposed royal abuses like arbitrary taxation, forced loans, and imprisonment without cause. Its significance is it reinforced the rule of law and civil liberties, limiting executive overreach. Bill of Rights, 1689, England. It was passed after the Glorious Revolution. It ensured parliamentary supremacy over the monarchy. It protected key rights: free elections, freedom of speech in parliament, no cruel punishments. Its significance is it solidified constitutional monarchy in England. John Locke ideas. Philosopher John Locke advocated for natural rights, social contract, and right to revolt against tyranny. Natural rights include life, liberty, and property. Social contract theory states that government exists by consent of the governed. Its significance is intellectual foundation for liberal constitutionalism and revolutions in America and France. Mayflower Compact, 1620, America. It is an agreement signed by pilgrims before landing at Plymouth. It introduced self-governance based on majority rule. Its significance is it is an early example of democratic social contract in colonial America. American Declaration of Independence, 1776. It declared US colonies free from British rule. It emphasized sovereignty, individual rights, and equality. Its significance is its groundbreaking in asserting universal human rights and justifying revolution. US Constitution 1787 and Bill of Rights 1791. It established a federal system with separation of powers and checks and balance. Bill of Rights ensured individual freedoms, speech, religion, due processes, etc. Its significance is model for modern constitutional democracies. French Declaration of the Rights of Men and Citizens, 1789. It is the product of French Revolution. It asserted universal rights, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Significance: it promoted popular sovereignty and equality before law. Napoleonic Code, 1804. It was a civil code enacted under Napoleon Bonaparte. It codified private law, property, contracts, civil procedure. Its significance is it influenced legal systems across Europe, Latin America, and beyond. These events and ideas established key pillars of modern constitutionalism, which includes limited government, fundamental rights, popular sovereignty, legal codification, and equality before law. 19th century can be seen as speed and setbacks, growth of liberal constitutions. It was inspired by Enlightenment and revolutionary ideals. Nations in Latin America and parts of Europe, example Belgium 1831, adopted constitution that emphasized rights, rule of law, and representative government. The significance is spread constitutionalism beyond its Western European roots. Parliamentary reforms in the UK. Reform Acts 1832, 1867, 1884 progressively expanded the right to vote to broader sections of the population. Gradual shift from aristocratic rule to popular representation. Its significance is stringent parliamentary democracy. Some challenges were present. Colonialism. Despite constitutionalism at home, colonial powers denied rights and self rule in their colonies. Authoritarianism. Some regimes adopted constitutions not to ensure freedom but to legitimize control, example symbolic or manipulated constitutions. 20th century can be seen as global expansion. Weimar Constitution 1919 Germany progressive and democratic proportional representation civil rights were included, however it lacked stability and was exploited by extremists. Rise of Nazism. Significance showed the danger of democratic collapse without safeguards. Soviet Constitution 1936. It enshrined socialist principles such as equality and state ownership. It lacked real political freedoms, power concentrated in the Communist Party. Significance Constitution used as a tool of ideology, not liberty. Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. It was adopted by United Nations post World War II, defined universal human rights, dignity, equality, freedom from torture. Significance it became moral and legal foundation for global human rights norms. Indian Constitutions 1950. World's longest written constitution, it combined democracy, federalism, secularism, and social justice. Its significance is it is a model for post colonial constitutionalism. Post colonial constitutions. Many newly independent nations in Africa and Asia created constitutions blending Western democratic models, indigenous practices, social justice goals. Judicial review also expanded. Brown versus Board, USA 1954 ended racial segregation in schools. Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, India 1973 established basic structure doctrine limiting parliament's power to amend the constitution. S- Significance courts became active protectors of constitutional principles. International law influence, rise of supranational institutions, European Union, International Criminal Court, human rights courts. Significance constitutionalism now influenced by global norms and institutions. These phases show how constitutionalism became a global phenomenon, adapting to diverse contexts but also facing ideological misuse and implementation challenges. 21st century new challenges and developments are seen threats from populism, rise of populist leaders in some democracies, undermining of judicial independence, media freedom and parliamentary checks. Populism can weaken the constitutional balance of power and democratic norms. Surveillance versus privacy. Expansion of state surveillance, example digital tracking, mass media collection, mass data collection, clashes with the right to privacy and freedom of expression. New technology forced constitutions to balance security with individual rights. Environmental constitutionalism. Countries like Ecuador 2008 and Bolivia recognize the rights of nature in their constitutions. Courts in other countries have also upheld environmental rights as part of fundamental rights. Its significance is marks a shift toward ecological justice and intergenerational responsibility. LGBTQ plus and gender rights. Progressive constitutions and courts now protect same-sex marriage, gender identity rights, anti-discrimination measures. Its significance is expanding the scope of equality and dignity under constitutional law. Global or supranational constitutionalism. Increasing influence of international bodies, example EU, UN, ICC. National constitutions now interact with global norms and treaties. Its significance is blurs the line between domestic and international constitutional standards. Hence, constitutionalism has evolved over millennia from ancient legal codes to modern democratic frameworks. Despite differences, the core principles endure. limited government, rule of law, protection of human rights. To stay relevant, constitutionalism must adapt to modern political threats. Example, authoritarianism, populism, respond to new challenges. Example, technology, climate change, identity rights. Thank you. Types of constitutionalism. Political constitutionalism. It emphasizes democratic governance and accountability, power checked by political institutions, example parliament and elections, trust political processes more than courts, example UK system, parliamentary sovereignty. Legal or judicial constitutionalism focuses on rule of law and legal limits on power. Courts, especially constitutional courts, have central role, promotes judicial review and protection of rights, example USA and Germany. Economic constitutionalism incorporates rules on economic governance into constitutional frameworks, emphasizes property rights, free markets, fiscal rules, ensures economic justice and regulates capitalism. Example EU constitutional framework, Germany's social market economy. Socio-cultural constitutionalism reflects social diversity, cultural rights, and collective identities, includes minority rights, indigenous rights, language, religion, aims for inclusion and pluralism. Example South Africa, Bolivia, Nepal after 2015. Global or transnational constitutionalism. Emergence of constitutional principles beyond the nation state includes international law, human rights norms, and global institutions. Example European Union, UN Human Rights Treaties, ICC. Importance of constitutionalism in Nepal. Foundation of governance system. It serves as a core basis for operating the state governance structure. It ensures rule-based governance through laws, procedures, and systems. It establishes a system based on principles and accountability. Rule of law and legal supremacy. Applies the law equally to all citizens and state authorities alike, ends arbitrary and autocratic rule by limiting executive power, promotes institutionalization of rule of law across all state mechanisms, protection of human rights, guarantees fundamental rights such as freedom, equality, dignity, and justice, ensures judicial protection of rights through independent courts, respects and promotes human rights as a constitutional obligation. Democratic accountability holds the government accountable to the people and the law, empowers citizens with choice, voice, and rights in governance, ensures governments acts through consent and representation, limitation of state power, introduces checks and balance among the executive, legislative, and judiciary, prevents abuse of authority through limited government, ends arbitrary concentration of power, federalism and inclusive governance, distributes power among federal, provincial, and local levels, ensures representation and autonomy of diverse communities, recognizes Nepal's ethnic, linguistic, regional, and gender diversity, independent judiciary upholds judicial independence to resolve disputes fairly, ensures constitutional interpretation and judicial review, protects democracy through extraordinary jurisdiction, institutionalization of good governance, promotes, promotes transparency, accountability, and responsiveness in government. It strengthens constitutional bodies like Election Commission, CIA, and HRC, etc. It creates conditions for sustainable and inclusive development. Protection of democratic norms and values. It encourages pluralism, elections, rule by majority with respect for minorities. It builds vibrant democratic institutions and participatory governance. It internalizes democratic culture within political processes. Constitutionalism is the foundation of a rule based, inclusive, and democratic governance system. Its promotion and full implementation is a present necessity for Nepal to ensure justice, freedom, equality, and development. Problems and challenges in establishing constitutionalism in Nepal. Weak implementation of constitutional provisions. There is delayed of transfer of powers, duties, and rights to local levels, ineffective enforcement of fundamental rights like employment and education, inefficient judicial system. Judicial processes are slow, ineffective, and non-transparent. Courts are unable to maintain updated records and expedite justice. Lack of good governance values. There is an absence of integrity and professionalism in public officials. There is weak political culture and poor leadership practices. Unequal resource distribution. There is imbalanced allocation of resources and investments in priority sectors. Limited press freedom. Press freedom remains more nominal than practical. Increasing impunity. Growing incidents of lawlessness and lack of accountability can be seen. Unresolved socioeconomic issues. Persistent unemployment and poverty reduction challenges are present. Possible solutions can be effective decentralization, accelerate devolution of powers and resources to local governments, judicial reforms, improve judicial efficiency, transparency, and access to justice, update and maintain judicial records systematically, promote good governance, strengthen ethics, professionalism, and accountability in public service, foster democratic political culture and leadership training, equitable resource allocation, ensure fair distribution of development resources based on needs, strengthen media freedom, protect journalists and promote a truly free and independent press, combat impunity, enforce laws impartially and strengthen anti-corruption measures, address social rights, implement policies for employment generation and poverty alleviation. Nepal's constitution and constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is a principle of limited government where governance is conducted according to the supreme law, the constitution. It accepts the supremacy of law and limits arbitrary use of power. Constitutionalism is considered the philosophy underpinning the constitution. The current constitution of Nepal was promulgated on 3rd Ashwin 2072 BS. It contains 15 parts, 308 articles, and 9 schedules. It is recognized as the people's constitution reflecting their sovereignty. Positive aspects of Nepal's constitutions are flexible provision allowing amendments with two-thirds majority in parliament, sovereignty lies with the Nepalese people, parliamentary system with constitutional president and executive prime minister, inclusive representation in parliament and mixed electoral system, three-tier governance structure, federal, provincial, and local levels, extensive provision for fundamental rights, establishment of 13 constitutional bodies, separation of powers with checks and balance, independent judiciary with powers of judicial review, parliamentary oversight ensuring government accountability. Challenges or limitations. Prime Minister is protected from no confidence motions for first 2 years and Parliament cannot be dissolved by Prime Minister during this period, which may limit political accountability. Certain rights such as education, health, and environment are fundamental rights but subject to restrictions as per law. Citizenship provisions have inequalities. Judicial accountability needs strengthening. Complex and costly governance structure exist. Some redundant institutions such as district assemblies remain. The constitution declares Nepal as secular state, but the exact meaning of secularism is debated. The Constitution of Nepal defines the structure and limits of government authority and legitimizes state actions. It is regarded as a high quality constitution with some limitations. Effective implementation of constitutional supremacy, rule of law, periodic impartial elections, and respect for fundamental rights are key to establishing genuine constitutionalism and rule of law in Nepal. If there are any queries and questions regarding this presentation, you can comment down below in comment section. Thank you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.